The morning sun peeked through the windows of Mabel's diner, casting a warm glow on the checkered floor. It was 7:15 a.m., and the smell of fresh coffee and sizzling bacon filled the air. The small-town diner was already buzzing with regulars nursing their morning coffees and exchanging the latest gossip. Officer Dave Wilson pushed through the glass door, the bell jingling to announce his arrival. He nodded at the waitress behind the counter, who already knew his usual order: black coffee and eggs over easy. Wilson had been coming to this diner for 15 years, ever since he joined the force. He liked to think of it as his territory. As he made his way to his regular stool at the counter, something caught his eye. In the corner booth sat a woman he'd never seen before. She was elegantly dressed in a navy blue blazer, her hair pulled back in a neat bun. Papers were spread across the table in front of her, and she appeared to be studying them intently, occasionally making notes with a silver pen. Dr. Angela Thompson didn't notice the officer's stare. She was too focused on reviewing patient charts for the morning surgeries. As the new chief of surgery at the local hospital, she had a full day ahead. Her husband had promised to meet her for breakfast before they both started their important first days in their new positions. Wilson's eyes narrowed as he watched her. In his 20 years on the force, he'd developed what he called his cop instinct, though others might have called it something else entirely. The woman looked too well-dressed for this diner, too professional. In Wilson's mind, that made her suspicious. He grabbed his coffee from the counter and slowly walked toward her booth. The other patrons, familiar with Wilson's reputation, exchanged worried glances. Old Mr. Peterson, who ran the hardware store, quietly folded his newspaper and watched. Betty, the head waitress, paused mid-pour, coffee pot hovering over a customer's cup. "Excuse me, ma'am," Wilson said, standing over Dr. Thompson's table. His voice carried across the now quiet diner. "Mind telling me what you're doing here?" Dr. Thompson looked up, surprised by the interruption. She smiled politely. "Good morning, officer. I'm waiting for my husband. We're having breakfast together." Wilson's eyes scanned the papers on her table. "Those look like confidential documents. What exactly are you looking at?" "They're medical charts," she replied calmly. "I'm a doctor at the hospital." "Is that so?" Wilson's tone dripped with skepticism. "And you just happen to be reviewing medical charts in a public diner at 7 in the morning?" Dr. Thompson's smile faded slightly. "Yes, officer. I'm preparing for surgery. Is there a problem?" "The problem," Wilson said, leaning closer, "is that I've never seen you before. This is a small town, and we don't get many visitors who just show up with expensive clothes and briefcases full of papers." The diner had gone completely silent now. Even the cook had stopped flipping pancakes to watch the scene unfold. Betty gripped her coffee pot tighter, her knuckles white. "I just moved here," Dr. Thompson explained, maintaining her composure despite the officer's aggressive tone. "I'm the new chief of surgery at Memorial Hospital. My husband and I arrived last week." Wilson scoffed. "Chief of surgery? Right, and I'm the President of the United States. Let me see some identification." Dr. Thompson took a deep breath. She recognized what was happening. She'd faced similar situations before in her career. But something about this officer's hostility felt different, more personal. "Officer, I'm not required to show you identification simply for sitting in a diner," she said firmly but respectfully. "I'm a paying customer waiting for my husband." Wilson's face reddened. "Now you're being uncooperative. That makes you even more suspicious in my book." The tension in the diner was thick enough to cut with a knife. Several patrons shifted uncomfortably in their seats, but no one spoke up. They all knew Officer Wilson's reputation, and most were afraid to get involved. The morning rush was picking up, but inside Mabel's diner, time seemed to stand still. Officer Wilson stood rigid at Dr. Thompson's booth, his shadow falling across her medical charts. The smell of burning toast drifted from the kitchen. Even the cook was too distracted to notice. "Listen here," Wilson said, his voice growing louder. "I've been protecting this town for 20 years. I know trouble when I see it. And right now, you're looking pretty suspicious to me." Dr. Thompson carefully closed her patient files. She dealt with difficult situations in emergency rooms, but this was different. This wasn't about medicine. This was about something much uglier. "Officer," she said, keeping her voice steady, "I've already explained why I'm here. I'm happy to wait for my husband quietly. There's no need for this confrontation. Wilson slammed his hand on the table, making the salt and pepper shakers jump. Don't tell me what's needed. You think you can just waltz in here with your fancy clothes and attitude? Betty, the waitress, finally found her courage. Dave, honey, maybe you should just let the lady eat her breakfast in peace. Wilson whirled around. Stay out of this, Betty. I'm doing my job. Your job? Dr. Thompson asked quietly. Does your job include harassing customers who are simply having breakfast? The officer's face turned an even deeper shade of red. Now you're questioning how I do my job. That's it. I want to see identification right now, or I'm calling for backup. Around the diner, people shifted uncomfortably. Mrs. Rodriguez, who ran the local bakery, whispered to her husband in Spanish. Two truck drivers at the counter exchanged knowing looks. Everyone could see what was happening, but fear kept them silent. Dr. Thompson reached for her purse, then stopped. Before I show you anything, officer, can you please tell me what law I'm breaking by sitting here? Suspicious behavior, Wilson snapped. Loitering. Possible fraud with those fake medical documents. Fake? Dr. Thompson's eyebrows rose. Officer, these are legitimate medical charts from Memorial Hospital. I start my position there today. Wilson pulled out his radio. This is Officer Wilson. I need backup at Mabel's Diner. Got a possible 10 to 66 here. He used the code for suspicious person, his voice carrying across the now silent restaurant. The radio crackled back. Copy that, Wilson. What's the situation? Female suspect refusing to cooperate. Claims to be some kind of doctor, probably fake ID. Need assistance to verify and possibly remove from premises. Dr. Thompson shook her head in disbelief. This is absurd. I'm a customer waiting for my husband. I've offered to show identification, even though I'm not legally required to. What more do you want? I want the truth, Wilson barked. People like you don't just show up in our town without a reason. What's your real agenda? The bell above the diner door jingled, but Wilson didn't turn around. He was too focused on intimidating the woman in front of him. Two elderly ladies who'd just entered took one look at the scene and quietly backed out. My agenda, Dr. Thompson said slowly, is to have breakfast with my husband before we both start our new jobs. That's all. New jobs? Wilson sneered. Let me guess, he's supposedly some big shot too. Dr. Thompson checked her watch. He should be here any minute. Perhaps we can clear this up when he arrives. Oh, I'm sure he will, Wilson said sarcastically. Probably another fake story to cover your tracks. Betty tried again. Dave, please. The lady's just trying to have breakfast. This isn't right. I said stay out of it, Wilson snapped. He turned back to Dr. Thompson. Stand up. Slowly. Keep your hands where I can see them. Dr. Thompson remained seated. Officer, I'm not going to stand up like a criminal. I've done nothing wrong. The radio crackled again. Wilson, backup is 2 minutes out. What's your status? Suspect is being uncooperative, Wilson responded, refusing direct orders. The tension in the diner was unbearable. Several customers had quietly slipped out, not wanting to witness what might happen next. Those who remained watched in silent horror as the situation continued to escalate. Dr. Thompson's phone buzzed on the table. Wilson's hand instinctively moved toward his belt. Don't touch that phone, he ordered. The sound of sirens grew louder as the backup units approached Mabel's Diner. Through the front windows, flashing red and blue lights painted the walls in alternating colors. 2 police cruisers pulled into the parking lot, their tires crunching on the gravel. Officer Wilson straightened his shoulders, feeling vindicated. Now we'll get to the bottom of this, he announced to the diner, as if he were solving a major crime. 2 officers entered the diner, Sergeant Lisa Martinez and Officer James Chen. Martinez was known for her level-headed approach to policing, while Chen was still a rookie, just 6 months on the force. They both looked confused as they surveyed the peaceful scene, a well-dressed woman sitting calmly in a booth, surrounded by medical papers. What's the situation, Wilson? Martinez asked, her trained eyes taking in every detail. This woman here, Wilson gestured dramatically, refuses to properly identify herself. Claims to be some hotshot doctor, but I'm not buying it. She's been uncooperative and suspicious. Martinez approached the booth cautiously. Unlike Wilson, she noticed the hospital logo on several of the documents. "Ma'am, I'm Sergeant Martinez. Can you tell me what's going on here?" Dr. Thompson smiled politely at the sergeant. "Good morning, Sergeant. I'm Dr. Angela Thompson, the new chief of surgery at Memorial Hospital. I'm simply waiting for my husband to join me for breakfast before we both start work today." Martinez nodded, noting the woman's calm demeanor and professional appearance. "Do you have any identification, Dr. Thompson?" "Of course," Dr. Thompson replied, reaching for her purse. "Though I must say, I'm not sure why it's necessary just to have breakfast." "She's lying," Wilson interjected. "I've been watching her. She's up to something." Martinez shot Wilson a warning look. "Let her speak, Dave." Dr. Thompson pulled out her wallet and handed her driver's license and hospital ID to Martinez. The sergeant examined them carefully, then passed them to Chen for verification. "Run these, please," Martinez instructed the rookie. While Chen stepped outside to use the computer in his patrol car, Wilson paced impatiently. "This is a waste of time. We should take her in for questioning." "For what?" Martinez asked. "Eating breakfast while black." The words hung in the air like smoke. Several customers nodded in agreement, finally finding their voices. "That's exactly what this is about," muttered Mr. Peterson from his corner table. Wilson's face flushed. "This isn't about race, it's about suspicious behavior." "What suspicious behavior?" Betty called out from behind the counter. "She's been sitting there quiet as a church mouse, just reading her papers." Ken returned, holding the IDs. "Everything checks out, Sergeant. Dr. Angela Thompson, Chief of Surgery at Memorial. Just hired last week. Her credentials are impressive. Johns Hopkins, Mayo Clinic." Martinez handed the IDs back to Dr. Thompson. "I apologize for the inconvenience, Doctor. Welcome to our town." "This is ridiculous," Wilson exploded. "Just because she has fancy papers doesn't mean—" "Enough, Dave," Martinez cut him off. "There's no crime here. No suspicious activity. Just a doctor waiting for breakfast." Dr. Thompson's phone buzzed again. This time, Martinez nodded. "Go ahead and answer that, doctor." "Thank you," Dr. Thompson said, picking up the phone. "Hello. Yes, honey, I'm still at the diner." "No. There's been a bit of a situation." Wilson rolled his eyes. "Oh, here we go. The mysterious husband." "Actually," Dr. Thompson continued into the phone, "there are several officers here right now. Yes, Officer Wilson and Sergeant Martinez. You want to speak with them?" She held out the phone. "My husband would like a word." Wilson grabbed the phone aggressively. "This is Officer Wilson. Who am I speaking to?" The voice on the other end was deep and authoritative. "This is Chief Thompson. I understand there's been some confusion regarding my wife." Wilson's smugness didn't waver. "Chief of what?" "Look, sir, your wife has been acting suspiciously." "Chief of Police," the voice interrupted. "Your new Chief of Police. I'm scheduled to start today, but it seems I need to arrive a bit earlier than planned." The color drained from Wilson's face. Martinez and Chen exchanged shocked looks. The diner fell completely silent except for the sound of bacon sizzling in the kitchen. Wilson's grip on the phone tightened as reality crashed down on him. His mind raced, trying to process what he'd just heard. The new Chief of Police? Impossible. He would have known about this. Everyone would have known about this. Chief Thompson." Wilson stammered, his voice suddenly losing all its earlier authority. "Sir, there seems to be some misunderstanding here." "Put me on speaker," the voice commanded. "Now." With trembling fingers, Wilson pressed the speaker button. The chief's voice filled the diner, clear and commanding. "This is Chief Michael Thompson speaking. Can someone please explain why my wife is being harassed while trying to have breakfast?" Sergeant Martinez stepped forward, her professional training kicking in. "Chief Thompson, this is Sergeant Martinez. I just arrived on scene. There appears to have been a misunderstanding." "A misunderstanding?" The chief's voice was controlled but sharp. "I'm listening." Dr. Thompson spoke up, her voice calm but firm. "Your officer here, Officer Wilson, has been questioning my presence in the diner for the past 20 minutes. He's called me suspicious, demanded my papers, and called for backup because I was sitting here reviewing patient charts." The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. Everyone in the diner held their breath. Officer Wilson, the chief finally spoke, is this accurate? Wilson's face had gone from red to ghostly pale. Sweat beaded on his forehead. Sir, I was just doing my job. She looked. I thought she might be. Might be what, Officer Wilson? The chief's voice was dangerously quiet. Suspicious, sir. Out of place. I've never seen her before and that made her a criminal? Tell me, Officer Wilson, what specific suspicious activity was my wife engaged in? Reading medical charts, drinking coffee, existing in a public space. Martinez winced. She'd seen this coming the moment she'd arrived and assessed the situation. Chen stood frozen by the door, grateful he wasn't the one under scrutiny. Sir, Wilson struggled to find words. I was just being thorough. Thorough? The chief's laugh was without humor. Let me tell you what I see, Officer Wilson. I see an officer who made assumptions based on nothing but his own prejudices. I see someone who abused his authority to intimidate a law-abiding citizen. I see exactly the kind of behavior I was brought here to eliminate. The diner patrons were no longer pretending not to listen. Every eye was fixed on Wilson, watching his world crumble. Sergeant Martinez, the chief continued, I want a full report on my desk within the hour. Officer Chen, you will provide your observations as well. Officer Wilson, you are relieved of duty effective immediately. Turn in your badge and gun to Sergeant Martinez. But sir, Wilson protested, you can't just. I can, and I am. I've spent 30 years in law enforcement, Officer Wilson. I've seen your type before. Officers who think their badge gives them the right to bully and intimidate. Not in my department, not on my watch. Dr. Thompson took her phone off speaker and spoke quietly to her husband. I'm fine, honey. Really, you don't need tow. But she could hear he was already in his car, the engine running. I'm 5 minutes away, he said. This ends today. As Dr. Thompson ended the call, the diner remained silent. Wilson stood there, looking like a deflated balloon. His hands shook as he unclipped his badge and removed his service weapon, handing them to Martinez. Dave, Martinez said quietly, you've done this before. We've had complaints. You knew this day would come. I was just doing my job, Wilson repeated weakly, but even he didn't seem to believe it anymore. Betty appeared with a fresh cup of coffee for Dr. Thompson. On the house, doctor. I'm so sorry about all this. Dr. Thompson smiled warmly. Thank you, Betty. And thank you all, she addressed the diner, for witnessing this. Change starts with accountability. Old Mr. Peterson stood up slowly. Should have said something sooner. We all should have. Saw this kind of thing too many times with Dave. The sound of a powerful engine grew louder outside. Everyone turned to look as a black SUV pulled into the parking lot. The black SUV door opened, and Chief Michael Thompson stepped out. He was tall, with silver threading through his close-cropped hair, wearing a crisp police uniform that bore the insignia of his new rank. His presence immediately commanded attention, not through intimidation, but through an aura of quiet authority that filled the space. As he walked toward the diner, every guy followed him. Even those who hadn't known he was the new chief could tell this was someone important. His stride was purposeful, his expression controlled but clearly holding back a storm. The bell above the door jingled as he entered. The chief's eyes immediately found his wife, and his stern expression softened for just a moment. He walked directly to her booth, leaned down, and kissed her forehead. Are you all right? He asked quietly. Dr. Thompson nodded, squeezing his hand. I'm fine. Just another day in America, right? The chief straightened and turned to face the officers. Wilson, now badgeless and gunless, seemed to shrink under his gaze. Martinez stood at attention, while Chen looked like he wished he could disappear into the floor. Officer Wilson, the chief began, his voice carrying to every corner of the diner, or should I say, former Officer Wilson. Do you know why I was hired for this position? Wilson shook his head mutely. I was brought in because this department has a problem. A culture problem. A problem with officers who think their badge gives them the right to treat certain citizens differently than others. The chief's eyes never left Wilson's face. I've spent my career fighting against exactly this kind of behavior. He turned to address the entire diner. Folks, I want you to know that what happened here today is exactly what I'm here to change. No citizen should fear harassment while going about their daily business. No one should be made to feel unwelcome in their own community. Betty started clapping. Soon, others joined in. The applause grew until it filled the small diner. Dr. Thompson smiled, proud of her husband, but also sad that this moment was necessary. Sergeant Martinez, the chief continued once the applause died down, I want you to collect statements from everyone here. Every detail. This isn't going to be swept under the rug. Yes, sir, Martinez responded crisply. The chief then turned to Wilson. I've already reviewed your file. This isn't your first complaint of this nature, is it? Wilson's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. Sir, those were all misunderstandings. 5 complaints in 3 years, all involving minority citizens, all dismissed or buried. The chief's voice was like ice. That ends today. He addressed Martinez again. I want a full investigation into all of Wilson's past complaints. Every single one gets reopened. And I want a department-wide review of all similar complaints against other officers. Mrs. Rodriguez, who had been silent until now, spoke up. Chief Thompson, my son filed a complaint against Officer Wilson last year. Nothing happened. They said there wasn't enough evidence. What's your son's name, ma'am? The chief asked, pulling out a notepad. Tommy Rodriguez. Wilson stopped him walking home from basketball practice. Made him lie on the ground for 30 minutes because he fit a description. The chief wrote this down. We'll be looking into that, Mrs. Rodriguez. You have my word. More people began speaking up. Stories poured out, years of accumulated grievances that had been ignored or dismissed. The chief listened to each one, taking notes, his expression growing darker with each revelation. Dr. Thompson watched her husband work, seeing the leader she'd always known he could be. This was why they'd moved here, why they'd left comfortable positions in the city, to make a real difference. From this moment forward, the chief announced, we're implementing new policies. Body cameras will be mandatory and will be reviewed regularly. We'll have citizen oversight committees. And we'll have monthly community meetings right here in this diner if Maples will have us. You bet we will, Betty called out. Free coffee for all community meetings. The chief smiled for the first time. Thank you, Betty. Change starts with conversation, and conversation starts with coffee. He turned back to Wilson one last time. Clear out your locker by end of day, and Wilson, if I ever hear of you working in law enforcement again, anywhere, I'll make sure every department knows exactly why you were fired. The atmosphere in Maple's diner had completely transformed. What started as a tense morning had become a turning point for the entire community. Chief Thompson pulled up a chair and sat down at his wife's booth, but not before addressing the room one more time. I want everyone here to know that my door is always open. If you've experienced anything like what happened today, or if you see something that doesn't feel right, come talk to me. That's not just a promise, it's my commitment to this community. Sergeant Martinez approached the booth with her notepad. Chief, I've collected preliminary statements from everyone. Would you like me to start the formal investigation process? Absolutely, the chief nodded. And Martinez, I want you to know I've been watching how you handled this situation. You showed good judgment. We need more officers like you in leadership positions. Martinez stood a little straighter. Thank you, sir. I try to do what's right. That's exactly what we need. The chief turned to Officer Chen. And you, Officer Chen, you're new to the force. What did you learn today? Chen swallowed hard. That we need to question our assumptions, sir. And that staying silent when something's wrong makes us part of the problem. Good answer. Remember that lesson. It'll serve you well. Dr. Thompson finally got to order her breakfast, and the chief ordered his usual black coffee and wheat toast. As they waited for their food, more community members approached their table. Chief Thompson, said Mr. Peterson, the hardware store owner, I've lived here 40 years. We've needed someone like you for a long time. But I have to admit, we've all been part of the problem. We saw things and stayed quiet. The chief nodded thoughtfully. Change requires everyone, Mr. Peterson. The fact that you're speaking up now matters. That's how we move forward. Young Tommy Rodriguez, the teenager whose story his mother had shared earlier, walked in with his basketball under his arm. He'd heard what happened and came straight over. Is it true? He asked the chief. You're really going to look into what happened to me? I promise you, Tommy, we're reopening your case today. What happened to you was wrong, and we're going to make it right." The teenager's eyes welled up. "Thank you, sir. I thought nobody cared." "I care," the chief said firmly. "And from now on, this whole department will care." As breakfast arrived, the chief outlined his plans. "Starting tomorrow, we're implementing new training programs. Every officer will go through bias awareness training. We're creating a community liaison position, and we're establishing a youth advisory council. I want young people like Tommy to have a voice in how their police department operates." Dr. Thompson smiled as she listened to her husband. "This is why we came here," she said softly, "to make a real difference." "And we will," he assured her. Then, addressing the room again, "But I need all of you to help. Change doesn't happen in a vacuum. It happens when good people stand up and speak out." Wilson, who had been standing in the corner like a scolded child, finally found his voice. "Chief, I want to apologize. I see now that I was wrong. I let my prejudices cloud my judgment." The chief studied him for a long moment. "An apology is a start, Wilson, but actions speak louder than words. What you do next will define who you really are." Betty brought over a fresh pot of coffee. "Chief, if you're serious about those community meetings, I'd like to volunteer to help organize them. This diner has always been the heart of our town. Might as well make it official." "I'd appreciate that, Betty. In fact, I'd like our first meeting to be next week. We'll call it Coffee with the Chief. Everyone's invited." As the morning sun climbed higher, the diner returned to its normal rhythm, but something fundamental has shifted. People talked more openly, smiled more freely. The wall of silence that had allowed injustice to flourish had begun to crumble. Dr. Thompson reached across the table and took her husband's hand. "Not bad for your first day on the job, Chief." He squeezed her hand back. "Our first day. We're in this together, remember?" Outside, the police cruisers pulled away, but the conversations inside Mabel's diner continued. Change had come to their small town, and it had started over a cup of coffee. 6 months had passed since that eventful morning at Mabel's diner. The small town had undergone a transformation that no one could have predicted. The diner's windows now displayed colorful posters announcing Coffee with the Chief every Tuesday morning. And the parking lot was always full during these meetings. Chief Thompson sat at what had become known as the Booth of Change, the same spot where his wife had faced discrimination. Across from him sat Tommy Rodriguez, now wearing a crisp junior police cadet uniform. The Youth Advisory Council had been Tommy's idea, and he'd become its first president. "The cadet program has 25 members now," Tommy reported proudly. "And we're starting a mentorship program with the middle school next month." Dr. Thompson walked in, greeting everyone warmly. The regulars now knew her not just as the chief's wife or the hospital's top surgeon, but as the force behind the new community health initiative that provided free checkups at the monthly police community meetings. "How's our patient today?" she asked Betty, who had recently had knee surgery. "Much better, thanks to you, Doc." Betty beamed, pouring coffee with her usual skill. The bell jingled and Sergeant Martinez, now Lieutenant Martinez, entered with Officer Chen, who had just completed his advanced community policing certification. They joined a table of local business owners discussing the new Neighborhood Watch program. "Remember when people used to go quiet when we walked in?" Chen remarked to Martinez. "Now they wave us over to join them." The investigation into past complaints had led to significant changes. 3 other officers besides Wilson had been dismissed, and dozens of cases were reopened. The Rodriguez family received a formal apology and settlement for Tommy's incident. Most importantly, trust was slowly being rebuilt. At the counter, Mr. Peterson was chatting with a new face in town, a young black family who'd just moved in. "You picked the right time to come here," he was saying. "This town's different now. Better." The chief's phone buzzed. He glanced at it and smiled. "That's the mayor. City Council just approved funding for our new community center. It'll have after-school programs, job training, and a space for our police community workshops." A commotion at the door drew everyone's attention. A group of children from the elementary school filed in, led by their teacher. It was part of the new Meet Your Officers program, where kids spent time with police officers in positive, fun settings. "Chief Thompson," a little girl called out, "are you really having ice cream with us today?" "Absolutely," he laughed. "Officers eat ice cream too, you know." As the children settled in, giggling and chattering, Dr. Thompson leaned close to her husband. "Look at this place. 6 months ago, it was the scene of everything wrong with policing. Now it's the heart of community healing." The chief nodded, watching as Lieutenant Martinez helped a child with their ice cream order while Officer Chen showed another his badge. Sometimes change starts in the most unexpected places. Outside, a car pulled up. Former Officer Wilson stepped out, now wearing civilian clothes. He hesitated at the door, then pushed it open. The diner grew quiet for a moment. "I'm not here to cause trouble," Wilson said quickly. "I've been going to counseling, taking classes. I wanted to apologize properly to everyone, but especially to you, Dr. Thompson." The chief stood up. "Actions speak louder than words, Wilson. What have you been doing?" "I'm volunteering at the community center, teaching conflict resolution, and I'm studying to become a social worker. I want to help fix what I helped break." Dr. Thompson studied him for a moment, then nodded. "Redemption is possible for those who truly seek it. Welcome back, Mr. Wilson." As the day wore on, the diner buzzed with conversations about upcoming events, the police department's diversity celebration, the youth basketball tournament, the senior citizens safety workshop. Chief Thompson looked around at the transformed community and felt a deep sense of satisfaction. "You know what?" Betty announced to the room. "I think we need a bigger diner. All this community building is good for business." Laughter filled the air, mixing with the clank of coffee cups and the chatter of a community reborn. What had started as a moment of injustice had become a catalyst for lasting change. And at the heart of it all was Mabel's Diner, no longer just a place to eat, but a symbol of what's possible when good people stand up for what's right.